Hi, I'm Josh Bowman, Product Manager for QxControl, and in this video, we're going to review setting up cameras. This, of course, will be one of the most frequent and important tasks that you will perform within QxControl. So you can see here, we're starting off on the cameras page, and you can see that we have 6 available cameras. And what I've done is I've deleted the north parking lot camera so we can walk through the steps to add a camera using it as an example. So there are 2 ways that we can do this, and both work really well. Which you prefer depends on what information you have at hand. So let's start with the scenario where maybe I know what camera I want to install. Maybe I'm not certain of the IP address. Where we can go for this is the Gateways page just above Devices in your navigation toolbar. And if we click on the local gateway, again, we want to make sure that if we're managing multiple sites for our customers, we want to make sure that we are scoped in to the appropriate customer site so that we are searching from the appropriate QxControl gateway. From the gateway page, you can see here that we have the option to discover devices, and that is going to do exactly what it says. So this will go out by default, and it will look for any device with an OnViv profile. Now, each device will differ in terms of what information it will offer over the profile. So you can see we have several Hanwha, we have several Sony, Axis. Some manufacturers do not provide all the information. They will simply provide just the IP address. Some will provide the MAC address or not. So we do have other options where we can actually dig deeper. So by default, it's an OnViv scan, and you can see the result we got here. If you're not getting enough information to be clear on which cameras or devices are available, we can also do an ARP scan. Now, an ARP scan is a little more heavy-handed on your network, so we don't want to use this unless we need to. And the other thing that I would like to point out is this will now find all devices that are in that particular subnet. So we do see some various laptops, Mercury devices, all kinds of things here, not just devices with OnViv profile. Also, to be clear, just because you see this device, we cannot install this printer into QxControl. It does need to be a supported OnViv device or Mercury device for that matter. Okay, so now I've shown you a couple ways that we can scan. Let's go ahead and choose. You see here we are using the hiding connected. So if you did want to scan and see both connected and unconnected devices, that is also an option. And we're going to go ahead and we're going to sort by make. And you can see we have several different brands here. And you can see here are all of the Axis cameras that we are looking for. And in our scenario, this is actually the exact camera here that we are looking to install. So we will not go through the entire procedure. I just want to make sure you understand how it works from Discover Devices. So you can see once I've selected that, we got a green checkbox, and I could actually select as many as possible, as many as I would like. So if I have 20 or 30 cameras that I'm adding, I could actually select them all. And when I would go through the sequence, it would allow me to install all of them at the same time. So that can be a really great time saver. So we're going to say select devices because we've found what we'd like to add. And you can see here, I've accidentally chosen an Intel PC. And I'm going to choose this, and this will actually say, okay, are you sure you do not want to add this device? I'm very sure. And you can see now we have the Axis camera that we would like to install. And you can see the status is needs config. So if we click on this item here, you can see here that we get the dialog to install the camera. And we can also install door controllers this way. We'll cover that in another lesson. So it is a camera. We would choose camera. We would populate the name, any description we would like to have. You can see the gateway is provided by default. We already have the IP address. We already have the port. And then we would just need to populate the username password. Once we tell it OK, once we go back to the camera page, we would see that that camera is there, and then we can finalize any other settings. So we're going to go ahead and exit out of this. I want to show you the other way that you can create a camera. And so what we're going to do is we're going to go to Devices, and we're going to choose Create Device. Again, this is a camera, so we're going to choose Camera, and we're going to name this Parking Lot North Entrance. Just like so. And we're going to go ahead and put the model number in there. You will also see that auto-populate as well. This could also be any other description you would like to have. In this version, we can actually choose the gateway. By default, the nearest gateway is populated, and that is what we want to use. Next, we need to manually enter the IP address. By default, port should be 80. And now we're going to enter the username and password to log into the camera. And we're going to just double check and make sure I did type that correctly. So once we're satisfied that all this information is correct, we're going to choose Create Device. You can see that the device is successfully created. And now we're able to go to the cameras page and actually modify this camera. So you can see here, it's already starting to populate the manufacturer, model, serial, and all the relative information. And you can see it has now listed this camera as one of the available devices. So let's go to cameras now. And you can see here is the camera we just added. You can see that already it is connected to the gateway. It is connected to the camera, and our media profiles are connected. Let's go ahead and enter that camera and make sure that we're pleased with all the various settings. Let's talk about some of the things that we can do here. We are happy with the name, the gateway, the IP, all of this is correct. Headquarters facility is the scope that we would like to have this camera, but again, we want to be very thoughtful as far as our layout of our system, where we want this camera to be accessible. So this was the scope where I was when I installed the camera, just happens to be correct, but do make sure that you double check the scope of the device. Also, we have the cloud storage option. So for this camera, we want 30 days in the cloud. And you can see just with this drop down, I can choose any of the available standard options. Also, we have recording mode. Very important to note, cloud storage is always event-based. So cloud storage will always be based on motion events as well as analytic events, door events, but it will be a recording, a clip that is from the start to the end of that event. When you choose continuous, this will be continuous recording that in addition to anything that goes to the cloud, this is continuous recording on the gateway itself. So when configuring your gateways, you should think in advance if you would like to have continuous recording, regardless of whether or not you also have cloud storage. You want to make sure that you have enough storage to get the retention that you desire with that continuous recording. So we are going to go ahead and set this up for continuous. I do prefer to use that. And we do have the option here. We could go to the schedules page and create a schedule. So if you have a certain time of day, certain days of the week, whatever the case may be, are the only times that you want this continuous recording, you can dictate that through schedules. You can also use any of the available schedules, and those will populate here. Schedules that are available at your scope that you would like to choose. Again, I want to always continuously record, so I will choose the always option. If you have a fisheye camera, you would also want to set here whether this fisheye is a ceiling, floor, or wall mounted fisheye camera to ensure that you get the clearest and best view from the camera itself. And also this will display all of the media profiles, essentially the streams that you've enabled via the OnViv profile on your camera. So you need to make sure in your camera, before you install or after you install, you want to make sure that you enable at least 2, ideally as many streams as you have. You want to enable those, and you want to enable those on H.264. We do not support H.265 at this time due to browser limitations. Also, if you have analytics, you want to make sure that you go into the camera and enable all those analytics so that QxControl will recognize those events through the OnViv profile and allow you to search on those in search and in timeline, for example. So now that we have this camera all set up, we'll now save that camera and save our settings. And you can see here on the info page, it's, we already had analytics such as crossline set up, motion. So those things are already starting to filter in. You can see that the two media profiles that we've enabled are both connected. So these are all very good things. Once this camera maybe gets associated with a door, you would see any doors that it is associated with in this list here. And just important to note a couple other things here to help manage these cameras. First of all, we have the option to reconnect. So this is a way to refresh the connection. So if your camera gets into a weird state, it doesn't want to connect, it's behaving oddly, reconnect is a great way to refresh that connection, and you would be surprised how often that will actually alleviate your issues. The other is, we've talked about enabling profiles, analytics, doing these things on the camera itself. Again, this system, this camera, all these devices are in Indiana. I am 3 hours away in Ohio, and I can go directly to the web page of this camera, and it will be using the same credentials that we used when we installed it. And you can see here, this takes me right into the interface of the camera. So again, if you've mounted everything, now you're remote, you're setting up, don't be upset if you forgot to set those things up in advance. Right here from my desk 3 hours away, I can get right into all of the different menus within this Axis camera. You see here, I can go to settings and I can set up, all of the stream settings, all of the privacy mask, if you want to set that up, all these things that we talk about. You don't have to be on site in order to set that up. So with that concludes our lesson on setting up cameras. Thank you.